Hello. There we go. Well, welcome today. I'm looking forward to the wine later. But before we get to the wine, you got to talk about metrics, am I right? Yeah, okay. So today, I'm going to reveal the best Agile metrics. Yeah. You've been waiting years for this. What are the Agile metrics? Oh my God, I don't know. I'm going to reveal all of them to you today. And everything else you can ignore because they suck. Okay, here we go. Let's get started. The first best Agile metric. Well, I call this UVIP. This is individual work velocity performance. You should be able to measure the velocity of individuals on your team, am I right? Yeah, of course you can. In fact, you can buy software out there that does this for you. So you can know not only the velocity of the team, but every single person on the team. Guess what? You can track each person's velocity. That is UVIP. Now over here you'll see Alex did okay for a few sprints and then his performance decreased. I don't know what happened to Alex. Maybe he went to Prague for a week or two. But also over here, you can see Soma, right? Soma's in the red. Well, she had a nice little rebound. Soma, that's your... that's why. That's your individual work velocity performance. And is Sally in the room?
She's drinking.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Well, that's self-explanatory right there. Right? Just look at that. Okay. You can do this on your teams. So why not? Well, this lets you figure out who's working, who's not working, who's being productive, efficient, who's not. Am I right? But it doesn't end there. If you can track it and trend it, you can also do this. I like to call this the PERP report. The per resource punishment report. Now you'll see that Soma has a pretty good velocity trend. Soma, you're okay. Yay! You're not getting fired. But Sally, who's not in the room right now, she's getting fired. In fact, I might get fired. Because now we can figure out the velocity of individual people and we can punish and reward based on individual velocity, otherwise known as UVIP. And once again, I bet a lot of people in here use software that let you do that in this room. How many people in here have software that can track individual performance or velocity of people on their team? Raise your hands. Oh my God. They are using the best Agile metrics, that's right. Okay. So, where do we go from here? Look at this, right? If you can do that for individual people on a team, of course you can compare velocities team to team. It's purely logical. Why wouldn't you be able to compare velocities team to team? And right here you can see a trend, team 1 versus team 2 versus team 3. In fact, you'll probably find that the bad performing team has the bad performing person on it. And the good performing team has the good performing person on it. And once again, there are software packages out there that let you do this. So, what you can start to do is track velocity percent increase or velocity trends. How much are teams increasing their velocity on a sprint by sprint basis? Is the team Soma is on? Is your team like increasing like 100% every sprint?
Because it's the best team.
It's the best team. They're increasing their velocity every single sprint. But the team Sally's on, their velocity is actually going down. She's going to end up on the PERP report. So yeah, you can measure individuals. You can measure teams. You can measure teams against teams. But it doesn't stop there because there are many more awesome Agile metrics you can get from these tools. Story point completion and failure rates. You get into your sprint review. How many points did the team complete How many points did they commit to? And how many did they fail at? Oh my goodness. This is points over time, just like the other ones. The mandatory line, that top line, that's basically the team's sprint backlog, right? They committed to the sprint backlog, all the points at the beginning of the sprint, that's their mandatory line. Why would they have committed to those story points unless they could complete them? So they must be mandatory. The ones where you have a high failure rate, they're at the bottom. And everything in between is the underperformance zone. So think about that. What that means is if any team does not complete all their story points, they are underperforming. That's right. And it doesn't end there. Because if you can track people and teams and story point rates, you can track Scrum Masters. Look at that. This is called performance demand and failure demand. The weak Scrum Masters are creating failure demand. In fact, they are failure demand. And their story point failure rates are increasing. The strong Scrum Masters, they might be delivery managers or something like that. They're strong. Their story point completion rates are increasing. That is performance demand. Okay, so you can track people, people against people, teams against teams, and Scrum Masters against Scrum Masters. But it doesn't stop there. Oh yes. You can go beyond story points into something I call document velocity. Kind of like story points for documents, right? How many slide decks do you complete on a daily basis? How many slides do you complete on an hourly basis? Now, the interesting thing to note here is that it's different for each type of person. If you're just like a Scrum Master, you might be down at the bottom here. But if you're an Agile coach, I'm expecting like triple velocity from you, right? If a Scrum Master produces 1 slide deck a day, Agile coaches should be producing 3 slide decks a day, right? Document velocity, slide deck velocity, whatever you want to call it, it's a thing. Beyond that, let's dive into documents a little bit, because it goes beyond just number of slides. You got to think about something called CDC. That's document density, right? There is an optimum document density. If your slides look like mine, you are not doing good. Your slide has got to look like a Word document. My personal recommendation is 6 to 8 point font, right? And that's what your slide should look like. So not only a high document and slide deck velocity, but a high density as well, right? They're not going to hire you at these big consultancies unless you got something that looks like that, am I right? All right, now, we've talked about teams, individuals. We've talked about Scrum Masters. We've talked about Agile coaches. We've talked about documents. But what else is there? Well, another interesting one I think you'll find relevant to many of you here. Scale Framework Complexity Score. Now, look, I don't have time to go into all the math today, okay? It's pretty straightforward. I sell certification classes on this. Come see me after the presentation and we'll talk about your Scale Framework Complexity Score. All right, let's get beyond that. Management Satisfaction Index. What do managers care about? This is what managers care about. So measure the things that managers care about. Efficiency, money. How many hours a day are you working anyway? 4? That's not good. Story point increase rate. Maybe number of teams per Scrum Master and product owner. Efficiency. Productivity. That's what it's about. This is what managers care about. Oh, look at that. That's like a manager's satisfaction report. Oh, you tell me people are working 12 hours a day? Excellent, excellent. That's good. This is like a manager's dashboard up here, isn't it? Oh, each product owner has 5 teams. That's a good metric. That trend should be going up, am I right? That's management satisfaction dashboard right there. You can't be an Agile consultant unless you do that. And do a little math. Money times number of hours times number of teams over percent increase, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's review all these awesome Agile metrics we've gone over. I have a question for you. Raise your hand if you've seen anything even vaguely similar to any of the metrics I just talked about. Raise your hand. Yeah, those are the high performers in the room. I'm not sure about the rest of you. But guess what? I do have something that I want to confess to you. Are you ready for this? I'm a liar. I'm a liar. Everything I just told you was a lie. Those were the worst Agile metrics. The worst ones. But guess what? I've seen every single one of those things used in real life, in real organizations. That document and slide velocity thing, I actually had someone say that to my face. I produce 4 slides an hour. How much do you do? And I was like, 2? They're like, oh, you got to bring up your document velocity. Okay, that's the dilemma. We've all seen examples of these things, as well as me. And I just want to highlight the fact that you might have this situation arise at some point or another. So what are the real Agile metrics you should care about? Well, you might be familiar with this quote that Pete Drucker said. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. Well, guess that's a lie too. Pete Drucker never said that. It's an urban myth. You can Google it. It was actually a paraphrasing that Simon Kalkin said of V.F. Ridgway. What gets measured gets managed, even when it's pointless to measure and manage it, and even if it harms the purpose of the organization to do so. So reflect on all those terrible Agile metrics we just talked about. People are doing it, and it's harmful. All right, so where do we go from here? You got to figure out the metrics that matter to you. Don't listen to me, because I'm a liar. So what do? Here's something you might do. Figure out a definition of value. Get your org together and talk about what matters. What do we value? And then create a definition of value. I'm sure many of you here are familiar with definition of like ready, we're done, or release. Create one for value. I mean, yours might be 6 bullet points long, it might be 2, it might only be 1. Then prioritize it. And it could be anything. I've been at organizations that value like public good or like carbon footprint or money. You know, money's good too. Create a definition of value. Here's an example. Now, this conference is all about making best friends forever. So I want you to find a friend, and I'm only going to give you 2 minutes. Find a metrics friend and have a 2-minute conversation with your new BFF about, I'm posing here, hang on a sec, okay. 2 minutes, what your definition of value might be in your organization. And your time starts now. 2 minutes, go, find a buddy, talk. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your conversation with your new BFF. Maybe you can have a beer with him later. So where do we go from here? Figure out what you value, right? It's different for every org, every team, right? That's what it comes down to. What about a definition of measurement? Value's one thing. Measuring value, that's another thing entirely. What if you create your definition of value, figure out how to measure it, and then create a definition of measurement? You'll see that this example, this definition of measurement, maps to that definition of value that I created earlier, right? Once again, your definition of measurement for your definition of value will be unique to your company, your team, your org, right? How you measure, like money, is entirely up to you. So guess what? You get to have some time with your BFF again. 2 minutes to talk about your potential definition of measurement. 2 minutes with your BFF, go. All right, thank you. All right, I hope you've had a great conversation about value, about measurement. I mean, you did it with the stranger here today. You should be able to do it with your team as you go back to work, right? In theory. Go back, have that conversation. What does value mean to us? What does measurement mean to us? Because all that other stuff, that was just lies. People telling you what to measure, you got to figure out what to measure. Let me show you another simple tool that I use a lot. I'm a big fan of canvases. This is an example canvas. I created this in like 30 seconds, right? What would yours look like? If you had to create a custom canvas to enable a conversation in your team about the measurements that matter, what would it look like? Would it have kittens and unicorns and flowers? And what would be the questions you ask? Create a canvas and just have that conversation. Keep it low fidelity, keep it easy, keep it human, right? That's what we're doing here today. Now, what advice can I give you? Well, when you start with measuring, you typically start with the easy measurements first, the lagging measurements. Don't worry about it too much. You can get to the leading measurements later. Lagging means it's historical data. We observed stuff that happened in the past. Velocity is a lagging metric. A leading metric is things that are predictive. Like, what do we think is going to happen in the future based on this metric? And that's a journey, and it takes time, and it's not easy, right? First, you start with value. Then you get to what you measure. Then you can get from lagging to leading, but it takes time. What other things can I offer you? That's the Suckinator. This is a super easy tool to use. This was inspired by Jim Benson. He has something called the Doominator. What you can do is you can take all your Agile metrics and just put them on that line. Is this awesome? Is this Agile metric awesome, or does it suck? Is it easy to get, or is it hard to get? When I work with organizations, I generally find that they throw out too many values and measurements and metrics, right? And then they become really hard to figure out. We'll talk about the next big thing you should think about, because the whole reason you prioritize what metrics you should bother with, and the reason you prioritize your definition of value and your definition of measurement, is because you really only need to start with one metric. You don't need to solve everything in one day. Figure out the one thing you value, the one way you can measure it, the best way you can. Practice it and get really good at it. Go from crawling to flying. And then add another metric and get good at it. Practice. And then add another metric. And then add another metric. And you get better at it over time. It's a journey. And don't listen to liars like me. Unless you're paying for my certification class later, in which case, feel free to come see me after drinks tonight. And you know what? I want to say thank you to everyone here. And this time I'm not lying. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And please buy my book. I know. It's a strange segue. If you find me later, I have a couple of books I have that I can sign and hand out. You know, come find me, and I'm happy to. If you buy me a beer, I'll give you a book. Okay, we have time for a few minutes of like 4 minutes for questions. So, someone asked me a really awesome question. No pressure. Oh yeah, please.
Thank you for the nice presentation. I'm interested, what's your experience on, does it matter really to measure time to market, and what's your experience of measurement it?
So my experience with measuring time to market? Yeah, basically none. I don't have any experience with measuring time to market. None of the organizations I work with are interested in time to market, really. Most of the organizations I deal with are basically interested in money. That's all they really care about. I mean, I'm being honest. Now, that said, if you are interested in that metric, I would look up something called EBM, which is evidence-based management. And evidence-based management has a great white paper and a book on it, and it talks a lot about time to market type stuff and the measurements you can actually use to figure that out. That would be what I would refer you to.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions I don't know the answer to? Back there.
So you've mentioned that first we have to focus on understanding what is our value,
right,
and then finding ways to measure it. What if the company doesn't understand its value and we're going in the wrong direction? Should we stop them or should we let them fail?
Okay, if you didn't hear that question, it was what if people don't know what the value is and how to measure it, and should we just let them die? It was pretty much the question. Well, I would say you don't let them die, but it's going to be a conversation about figuring out what they value. You'll notice that I used conversational techniques to have those talks. The last time I did a definition of value activity was in a kickoff for a portfolio Kanban, and there were about 100 people in the room. And basically all we did was the 100 people barfed up sticky notes. I call it barfing. It's where you write out a lot of sticky notes about what they value. And then we collectively put them on the wall as a group of 100 people, probably like half the size of this room. And then we prioritized them, and then we picked from the top of the list. So it was a very democratic type of model that I used in that situation. And then that's what we that's what we used moving forward. And it was the best we could do at the time. But you got to do something, and you can't let them fail. Not if it's going to result in their death, right? That was a mediocre answer, I guess. Is that okay? Go okay for now? Yet another question I don't know the answer to. Any other questions in the room I can't answer?
Time for one more question. I saw somebody over here trying to check my eye.
That's okay. All right, I'm good. They're fine, yeah. Read my book. All right, thank you a lot.
Thank you, Alex.